Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And welcome once again to another edition of the Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen here once again, episode 76 of the Juice Box. A lot of stuff to get into this week. We have the Dynasty AEW pay-per-view that happened this past Sunday. No big surprise here. Knocked it out of the park. We will dive deep into that, of course, towards the end of the show, because I'm going to close out with my thoughts on the end of Dynamite this past week, which has got everybody talking. The rating might not have shown, but the fans are absolutely talking, so that's a positive for AEW. Before we get into any and all of that, as always, follow me on Twitter at JuicySteen, Instagram at Juicy Wrestling Closet. You can go find this show, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, JuicySteen.podbean.com. I do believe you can find this show on Amazon Music under the podcast banner there as well. If you listen to it on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts on iTunes, please leave a rating and review. It really helps the show grow. And additionally, you can find this show and every new upload from this RSS feed for the Juice Box on YouTube at Juicy Steen, the same handle as the Twitter, which I have been working very diligently and very hard working throughout the last couple of months to kind of overhaul my YouTube channel that I've had for quite a long time, probably since 2006, and it is now full-on Juice Box material. Every single episode up until this point has been now uploaded to YouTube in their entirety. So all 75 episodes in the back catalog dating back to the maiden voyage, the first episode of the Juice Box back in January of 2023, is available on YouTube. Additionally, any sort of potential video content that could be produced here on the Juice Box will now be uploaded to that YouTube page, so it now opens up a little bit of another avenue for this show. So looking forward to potentially some YouTube content as time progresses. Another quick little note here. I mentioned last week how I was going to be featured on a few podcasts in the future. One will be out, I believe, later today, Around the Mat, which is a podcast pretty much similar to Around the Horn style. The host, PJ North, who I met at the Wrestling for Sale pop-up in Philly a couple of weeks ago. He has this podcast. He hosts this show. Very fun time. Myself, PJ, and his buddy Freddie had a great time. A couple of random topics we discussed, some trivia, some fantasy draft back and forth material there. I had a great time. I will be putting out all of those social media posts as they come down the pike on Twitter and on Instagram. Once those shows are uploaded, I will have the links if you'd like to check that out. Great host. Looking forward to being on that show in the future as well. Great first episode for yours truly being on there. No spoilers, but I had a great time. And then additionally, Apron Bump, which is another podcast out there. I will have more details as the episode, I believe, will be airing next week. But myself and the host of Apron Bump, Kyle, dove deep into ECW, November to Remember, 1996. I had not watched an ECW show in its entirety in quite a long time, and I got to, with the unedited footage, unedited music, it was a great experience. And then I got to sit down for about an hour and a half, about an hour and 45 maybe, with Apron Bump there, And man, we had a great time. We were laughing, a lot of great little news and notes throughout the show that we discussed. So I will put those social media posts out and blast them to everybody as that episode gets posted, I believe next week. So don't quote me on that, but I'm talking about it, so I guess you can quote me on that. So myself, getting out there, being a guest on some shows finally. I've been hosting this show for now. This is the 76th episode. And, I had initially, Juice Springsteen, of course, my run on Chair Shot Reality for those 3 years. I was just a co-host of sorts, but really just a guy behind the desk and didn't really have to host the whole damn thing. And now my own show, I love doing that, but it is really nice sometimes to not have so much pressure and just kind of go in and be a part of a bigger program and be a piece of the puzzle instead of trying to build the puzzle on my own. So shout out to Apron Bump, shout out to Around the Mat. Looking forward to doing more work with those guys in the future. So let's get to what happened this past week. Last Friday, this pod dropped, and that night I attended SmackDown PPG Paints Arena. I have been to quite a few WWE shows in Pittsburgh, dating back to Armageddon 2007, Bragging Rights 2009. I believe I went to a couple of Raws in between then and the Royal Rumble 2014. Roadblock, End of the Line in 2016, Extreme Rules 2018, and Payback this past September, at least on the PLE pay-per-view side. Of course, the Raw, a couple Raws, a few SmackDowns, a few house shows as well. Outside of probably Payback this past year, I would say that the crowd in attendance for SmackDown this past Friday was damn near the biggest I had seen in quite a long time. It was packed to the upper levels, to the highest seats up there. I saw people. I saw fans. It looked like pretty jam-packed throughout. And I believe it came through on TV as well. So really proud of Pittsburgh showing up, showing out for WWE, as it is in a hot time right now. So can't wait for them to come back. Not sure when that will be. Last year in 2023, March was the show that had, that was the SmackDown in March. But then they announced 6 months later that it was, we had Payback in September. So maybe some sort of show post SummerSlam, maybe a Raw or a SmackDown. They've had Raws before SummerSlam. Not sure what they're going to do. I doubt they'll run a PLE back in Pittsburgh again this year, but we'll see. But let's get to the actual show. First of all, got to see Justin LaBar, Josh Eisenberg, majority of Wrestling Nation. Of course, the Triple Threat Theater guys were there. I got to see Donnie, Josh Cross, the rest of Wrestling Nation, of course, in addition, which was nice to see after they recovered from the insanity of Xfinity Live in Philly. I'm looking at you, Loper. So let's get into what happened. Honestly, the match I was looking forward to the most happened first, and it was AJ Styles defeating LA Knight to get the number one contendership for the WWE Undisputed Championship that's currently held by Cody Rhodes. This was a good match, and this was the right call. I thought AJ Styles was going to be the right guy for it, and lo and behold, he did get the victory. So at Backlash, we will get Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles, I believe for the first time ever, which is fantastic. These are two guys formerly of Bullet Club, and I cannot wait to see them finally clash. Of course, the only other match announced for Backlash thus far, happening in France next Friday, will be Damian Priest versus Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight Championship. So I enjoyed that AJ Styles got the victory. I felt it was much deserved. LA Knight got the big win at WrestleMania, so he did not really need to get this title opportunity. And I'm not going to say that he's completely outside the realm of getting a world title in his future, but I would definitely say that a United States title run could and probably will be in the cards for LA Knight. Maybe this year, maybe by SummerSlam. I'm not sure how early, if they do it, that they would do it. So we'll have to see about that. But yeah, Backlash looking solid so far with just two matches so far. I'm looking forward to seeing what else they can put out there. I'm sure some sort of tag title, 1 or 2 tag title matches, but we'll see. Speaking of the tag titles, so they unveiled a new set of World Tag Team titles this past Monday on Raw. They looked great, and Awesome Truth, of course, holds those titles. And we did get a brand new set of WWE Tag Team titles now that A-Town Down Under will get. And I honestly love the design of these. They are very, very reminiscent of the vintage 1990s WWE Tag Team title belts. The titles that Demolition and the Hart Foundation held throughout the years. Just amazing looking titles. And I'm hyped for it. I'm hyped for the differential. Like, get some separation, what the titles look like. And I think they look great. So hopefully we can get some strong tag teams in the mix over the next couple of months and years down the line, and we can keep these titles separate and important. But that's not always the easiest thing to do. The number one contender for those tag titles was determined in a fatal 4-way. The Street Profits were victorious. So, again, not sure if this will happen on SmackDown or if it will happen at Backlash, but we will get A-Town Down Under versus the Street Profits for those WWE tag titles in the near future. I feel like A-Town Down Under will keep the titles for a bit, though, so we'll see. We had a little bit more of a bloodline interaction, of course. Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga beating down Kevin Owens, bloodying him for disrespecting the bloodline. So, more seeds being planted. I'm really not sure where they're going to go in regards to like Backlash and the future shows. I have seen where a lot of people believe we could be on the way to a War Games scenario later on this year, which would potentially involve The Rock, Roman Reigns, and 2 sets of Bloodline 4-on-4 teams. I hope that's where they're going to go. I would love to see that come to fruition. But with everything, let's let it play out. And I will use that phrase to discuss the AEW of it all when we get to that. And then, of course, I would say the main other point here, we had Bayley defeating Naomi, but in a no contest due to interference by Tiffany Stratton, the prettiest moonsault ever on both Naomi and Bayley. Very impressive. Tiffy time is officially here. And I know that this is a very difficult time to process where things are in regards to roster spots and whatnot, purely because the draft coming up so soon, you had to get some stuff out of the way. And now with the draft coming, you can start up new feuds and get the ball rolling on other feuds and title matches and whatnot. We'll talk about the draft here in a moment. But Tiffy time, I think she's going to be a major player in 2024. We shall see where she goes for WWE, depending on where she gets drafted. Raw, we got the Battle Royal for the new Women's World Champion. We had a World Tag Team title match. Gunther returned, of course. Damian Priest interrupted main event Jey Uso And I think it's pretty simple. I think we're going to get Damian Priest retaining probably at the the PLE, but Jey Uso, I think, I don't know. I've come to this conclusion in April now of 2024, but my early pick for the 2025 Royal Rumble, I'm going to mark me down. I'm down. My prediction is that the men's Royal Rumble winner for 2025 will in fact be main event Jey Uso. I would love nothing more than to see Jey Uso versus Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 41. I think whether you turn Jey, heel, or you keep it a babyface versus babyface match, I think it works either way, to be completely honest. So I'm hopeful that they can pull that off if Jey Uso, is a guy that they want to win the Rumble. Of course, you don't have to win the title if you win the Rumble. Cody's done that already. But I think it'd be time. I think that'd be a nice choice. But here's the thing. I say I'd love to see Jey Uso versus Cody Rhodes. It's not to say Jey Uso couldn't win the Royal Rumble and challenge somebody else and defeat that person and be the champion as well. It's just tough for me to believe that someone other than Gunther would be holding a world title by then. So who really knows? Maybe Gunther would be the Royal Rumble winner. I don't really know. Maybe Jey Uso wins Money in the Bank. There's a lot of different ideas out there, but I'd say Jey Uso and is my early pick. I would say Gunther, depending on how the rest of the year goes, is definitely a possibility now that he's not Intercontinental Champion. I do feel that Gunther will probably win the King of the Ring next month. What good that really does him, I'm not sure. But, yeah. Awesome Truth DIY in a tag title match. Awesome Truth retained their titles. Again, I don't know. I just, there's only so much you can do with the draft coming and the amount of, talent on each brand, who's champions. We'll get to the rules. So the rules do say that the champions are going to be protected and not be able to be drafted. So Priest, Becky, Awesome Truth, and Sami Zayn will remain on Raw. And then Cody Rhodes, Bayley, A-Town Down Under, and Logan Paul will remain on SmackDown. So the champions will remain. That is where the interesting part comes in. So they won't be drafted at all. But who knows who will be drafted, first. And we'll get to that here as we close out Raw. But Gunther returned, of course. And not only does that happen, but Kaiser lays out Vinci and, of course, turning on his Imperium mate. And, it's going to be interesting. Are we going to get Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser potentially in a match at King of the Ring? Or in the finals of King of the Ring? Or, dare I say, could Ludwig Kaiser win King of the Ring? I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility either. But I'm here for Gunther doing more and finally getting away from being the IC champion. It was a legendary run, but it's time for him to elevate and really, really start pushing forth as a singles competitor to bigger and better things. Sheamus and Drew McIntyre had an interesting war of words. Instead of banger after banger, Drew McIntyre said that Sheamus, burger after burger, because like the internet kind of was critical of the way Sheamus looked, which I'm not sure if I buy that. He looked kind of imposing to me. He looked like a thick, ready to roll heavyweight that has won a world title a few times, and he's a veteran. He's not a younger guy anymore. I mean, what did you expect from Sheamus? I love the old gear. It's going to make you look a certain way. But Drew McIntyre, of course, leaned into that negative social media outlook and use it for his own promos, which I am here for. Chad Gable berated Maxine Dupree and Tozawa, and of course said Otis was the biggest disappointment of all time. Yet they all pledged their allegiance to Chad, the Olympian Gable. So is this going to be a darker version of Alpha Academy? Is it going to eventually disband Alpha Academy? Are we going to get Team Gable featuring the Creed brothers? I don't really know, but it's just going to be wild to see what Chad Gable does. I love that he's kind of got his own thing going on now. I would just hope that it works. Like, let's lean all the way in. Let's push this guy. Let's make him a dastardly heel. Maybe he ends up winning that IC title, you know? I'm not sure if he's going to challenge for a world title anytime soon, but the IC title's definitely a start. What else? Oh, well, let's just close out with the main event. This was the Battle Royal for the Women's World Title, and it came down to 2 women, and it was Liv Morgan, Becky Lynch. Very interesting response from a lot of fans who definitely sided with Liv Morgan here, not thinking that Becky Lynch should win this title. But as I've seen a few people definitely bring this point up, and I will absolutely defend this point in this decision. To me, Liv Morgan is going to win the title again. She's going to win the Women's World Title at some point. Rhea Ripley had to get rid of the title due to injury. So how do you transition from Rhea, who's held the title for so long, keep it on, give it to somebody worthy of being a champion, who can then hold it to potentially lose it to someone who will win it from them, and then of course immediately get Rhea Ripley when she comes back. It's a interesting scenario and bridge to walk on, and I feel like they did the right thing by having Becky win this title. Liv, if you want to make Liv a bigger star, you would want Liv to win the title in a one-on-one match, a match that you've earned and you've really done a lot of work in, and not just thrown someone over the top rope. I don't think that's beneficial necessarily to the character of Liv Morgan, who has been a world champion before, and I think it helps her character and everything else out by winning a more legitimate match instead of, like I said, just winning a battle royal that, you know, anybody could win. Now you get Becky Lynch, who has, you know, she won the first ever women's main event at WrestleMania. She's been a multiple time world champion, and she's got a legacy that is going to live on forever. She's absolutely going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So you give her the championship. Liv can eventually beat her, which puts more stock in Liv Morgan. And then you have Liv go against Rhea, and there you go. You can't just give... I mean, you absolutely could have just given this title to somebody in this battle royal that wasn't Becky, and it would have been like, well, that's great, but did they really earn it? Like, how much did it do for them? Becky doesn't need the extra pizzazz to benefit her character. She's already a legend in her own right. So to me, give it to her, gets her another notch in that belt, if you will, and then you get someone that will eventually take it from her, and she'll get the moment, of course, eventually with Rhea, if Liv is the one to take it off of Becky. But whoever takes it off Becky will probably have that moment with Rhea. So in the long run, it benefits everybody for Becky to win. I think that was a smart choice. So you're out of your mind if you looked at it some other way, in my opinion. You don't really understand booking to booking is more than what happens that night. Booking and planning for the future, inherently in how it's phrased, for the future, you can't just do everything tonight. You got to plan for the next night and the next show and the next PLE and the next year's WrestleMania. You have to have ideas in mind, or else you're just going to be stuck doing the same old thing every single week. And I just don't think that's a smart move. So I think it was the right call to have Becky win. So we'll see how that all pans out over the next couple of months. But let's focus in on the draft. I'm going to run down the rules, and I'm going to run down the draft pool for both nights, as the first night will be on SmackDown tonight, and then Raw on Monday will have the next amount of picks. So I think 24 total picks on Monday and 16 picks total on Friday. And then I do believe, so it says the rosters will go into effect on Monday after Backlash happens in France. So that's when everything will be locked in. So who knows where everybody lands. It's just that the champions won't really be affected by that. But let's run this down. Of course, this is a great tool that WWE is utilizing as I record this episode of the Juice Box. I'm currently watching the NFL draft, and for the WWE to absolutely piggyback off of that and do the WWE draft, the next night? I mean, the NFL draft will also be tomorrow night, or tonight and tomorrow night, of course, but WWE capitalizing on what is current in sports and them kind of leaning into a sports production as of late, it all leads up and all helps out. My thing is, I'm hopeful you get, first of all, let's take it seriously. Let's keep those on SmackDown, and those on Raw. I'm tired of seeing this guy jump and those girls jump and this tag team does both. Like, we split the titles. We have a set of women's titles for both brands, a set of tag titles for each brand, the Intercontinental title on a brand and the U.S. title on a brand, and then a world title on each brand. You have it perfectly set up now. So let's keep it that way. Consistency, is king. I go by that with my podcast. I think that if you let up a little bit, if you're a little bit hesitant to continue a certain way, you're going to fall into the same patterns. But if you follow the same patterns and you keep to consistent things every week, doing my show, I want to do it at least once a week so that I can continue. You look forward to it. It's something you're responsible for, and then you can progress and do more. And then naturally it becomes successful. The more you flip and flop, I'm looking at you, AEW, in your ranking system, then that's where things get convoluted. If you're going to do the ranking system, then go 1,000% all in, pun intended. Make sure every single match counts. Make sure all these things are a part of it. Take it seriously. So, if you are WWE and you're going to do the draft, keep the rosters where they need to be until next year. If you want to make it more of a sports presentation, bring out some, give each person that gets drafted an announcement, give them a Raw or SmackDown t-shirt. Would it really be that difficult to do? No. And it would make things a little bit more realistic. It's tough in this day and age to suspend the disbelief in ring. But for an outside the ring segment that you're literally on purpose paralleling the NFL draft with, you might as well lean into that. Let's see that. I remember they did the draft war rooms, which was interesting to say the least, especially when the USA Network went head over heels for Josh Eisenberg's favorite wrestler, Natalya. But it's just funny, that they tried that, and I liked that, but then they just didn't ever continue it, or it just didn't make sense. Like the way that I'm sure it could make sense, they weren't going that route. So continuity and consistency, I think, is key here for the draft. Presenting it the right way is also key. And if you are successful, if this draft works out, if it looks like a great presentation and everybody's excited and it works out well and you keep the consistency of the rosters throughout the year, then guess what? Next year after next year after Mania, and you announce a draft again, then there you go. You've set it up now that after WrestleMania, you have this landscape changing event, and it's another thing to look forward to. Many people that are involved with sports or watch sports, someone like me, I love the NFL. The NFL takes up all fall, right? September through February. But 2 months later, they have the draft, and it's watched more by more people than the NBA or NHL playoffs that are happening at the same time. And it's insane. There's over 270,000 people in Detroit watching the draft live as I am recording this podcast. The NFL rules the sports calendar practically all year. Even May and June, there might not be too much, but as soon as we get into July, then you get some training camp and then the preseasons in August. Like, if you are WWE and you don't have an off season, it really would benefit if you had something that, you have WrestleMania, boom, then you got the draft, shakes everything up, the champions stay, but you get new faces on new shows, switch it up a bit. And that leads into your shows up until SummerSlam. And then SummerSlam, of course, bleeds into the fall, often referred to, as BS season. Nothing really happens. But now with War Games and Survivor Series, a lot happens. And blink after Survivor Series, you're at Royal Rumble, and you're on the road to WrestleMania again. If you have more tentpole items, and I didn't even mention Money in the Bank, if you have more tentpole items and events and PLEs throughout the year, or the draft, for instance, you keep fans always tuned in all year no matter what. There's always something to look forward to next. You're not just, oh, well, it's after WrestleMania. We've got nothing. We've done everything leading up into WrestleMania, and that's it. We're just going to phone it in for a couple more months until SummerSlam. You put the draft in there and you really take care of it and really give it some respect and some honor and, again, consistency, then I really think you got something special. So, the only other draft here, other rules here, the women's tag champions, Kairi Sane and Asuka, are eligible to be drafted, and they will be assigned to that brand if they lose the title. So, as champions, they can go to both brands, but if they lose them, they will go to whatever respective brands they're drafted to. So, I think it would be interesting if Asuka and Kairi got drafted to opposite brands, which is by nature incentive to keep the titles even more because you wouldn't want to split up with your tag partner. So I like that. Tonight on SmackDown, there's going to be 4 rounds of picks. Each round will be 2 picks apiece for 16 picks announced, 8 for each brand. Monday, we'll have 6 rounds of picks for 3 hours of programming. Of course, each round will consist of 2 picks apiece for 12 on Raw, 12 on SmackDown. SmackDown gets the first pick tonight. Raw gets the first pick on Monday. And like I said, rosters go into effect on May 6th, 2 days after Backlash France. I'm going to really quickly, as quick as I can, run through the available pool for tonight. AJ Styles, Alba Fire, and Isla Dawn, the entire Alpha Academy, Andrade, Bianca Belair, Braun Breaker, Ashanti, the Adonis, Cedric Alexander, Ivar, Jey Uso, LA Knight, Liv Morgan, Nia Jax, Randy Orton, Ricochet, Seth Rollins, Shayna Baszler, Sheamus, The Bloodline, who is Paul Heyman, Tama Tonga, Solo Sikoa, and Roman Reigns. The OC, which is Michin, Carl Anderson, and Luke Gallows, and Zoe Stark. And, of course, NXT superstars will be eligible to be drafted on both nights. So, that leads me to ask, who will be number 1? With Cody and all the champions not being eligible to be drafted, I would say that Roman Reigns should be number 1 overall. Which I like, and I think it builds anticipation, especially with Tama and Solo and Paul, kind of being running amok and really kind of taking over as Roman now loses the title. He might have lost the bloodline a little bit. So those guys absolutely really wreaking havoc recently on WWE programming. I think if Roman is drafted first, you get a great pop. Everybody's already chanting for "We Want Roman." His babyface reappearance and reemergence will be incredible, I'm sure. Who knows when that takes place, though, and I doubt we're going to see Roman tomorrow night, or later on tonight, or I don't think we'll see him on Monday either. So the pick would be interesting without him showing up, but when he does, oh my word. And then Monday, the available draft pool, DIY, which is Gargano and Ciampa, Apollo Crews, Braun Strowman, Bronson Reed, Indy Hartwell, Candice LeRae, Piper Niven, Chelsea Green, CM Punk, can't wait to see where he gets drafted, the Creed brothers, which also include Ivy Nile, Damage Control, which is Kabuki Warriors, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky, Drew McIntyre, The Final Testament, Paul Ellering, Scarlett, Karrion Kross, and AOP, Giovanni Vinci, Imperium, which is now only Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser, Jade Cargill, the entire Judgment Day of Dom, Finn Balor, and JD McDonough, Caden Carter and Katana Chance, Kevin Owens, Escobar, Angel Berto, and Electra Lopez of Legado del Fantasma, the LWO, which is Rey Mysterio, Carlito, Dragon Lee, Cruz del Toro, Joaquin Wilde, and Zelina Vega, Naomi, Natalia, the New Catch Republic, New Day, Odyssey Jones, Pretty Deadly, Shinsuke Nakamura, Tegan Nox, The Pride, which is the Street Profits, B-Fab and Bobby Lashley, and Tiffany Stratton. Interestingly enough, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think... No. I don't think Rhea Ripley is a part of potentially being drafted. So that also brings another point of when they return, where are they going to go? Because the Bloodline has Roman, but in the Judgment Day, Rhea Ripley is not mentioned. So I wonder about that. But I don't know, man. I love the draft. The 02 draft, of course, was amazing. My favorite draft was the 05 one where Cena got drafted to Raw in a huge, huge move that I really never thought was possible. And then, of course, Batista going to SmackDown was crazy as well. So it's been back and forth and hit or miss for a very long time. And I'm hopeful that, like I said, if they keep the consistency, they can really make this thing work. But will they? It remains to be seen. Let's close out the juice box with a little bit of AEW. Look, I've said it before, I'll say it again, and I'll probably continue saying it. AEW on TV is hit or miss. I am pretty entertained by the majority of AEW Dynamite, and anytime I do watch Rampage or Collision. However, some nights are tougher to get through than others. I think the 2-hour Dynamite is perfect. I think 2 hours is a great time frame and for a wrestling show. However, sometimes the show will drag, or certain things are placed in spots that I'm just not cool with, and it's like whatever. But I personally think that regardless of whatever's on TV with AEW, no matter what your thoughts are, no matter what the ratings are, the pay-per-views for AEW have been nothing but spectacular. And damn it, did we get another spectacular pay-per-view. AEW Dynasty, the first ever Dynasty event, St. Louis, Missouri. I sat and watched this event, and I was not disappointed at all. I was thoroughly entertained. This is one hell of a show. I'm just going to kind of go through everything and do a little bit of notes here and there, and then we'll go to Dynamite and close out with, of course, the end angle of Dynamite this past week. Bullet Club Gold did defeat the Acclaimed, which I accurately predicted, to unify all the 6-person tag team titles, which was really nice. Okada defeated Pac in a fantastic match for the Continental title. A very intriguing way to start the show. I was thrilled that it started off. And, it really set the pace for the rest of the night, and the rest of the night was insane. We had the House of Black, of course, defeating Adam Copeland, Eddie Kingston, and Mark Briscoe, which I thought was the right call. I was correct in that prediction as well, hoping that Malachi gets a shot at Adam Copeland for that title, his TNT title, sooner rather than later. Willow Nightingale wins the TBS title against Julia Hart. And, of course, we had the Mercedes Moné interaction, which then, of course, continued. We get it. We are going to now get, as I bring up the Double or Nothing card, we will get Mercedes Moné versus Willow Nightingale for the TBS title. So this is a perfect time. This will be a year since that fateful match in May, of course, where Willow and Monet had their battle. Monet got injured, and, of course, Monet now is all elite. So to see them run that match back at Double or Nothing, which will be really, really exciting to see. Looking forward to that. I've been critical of Mercedes Moné not having any sort of wrestling interactions on screen. Has done a few things, but for the most part, it's really just been promo work, which is fine if she's not cleared necessarily. And I know that they wanted to get this match happening at Double or Nothing, so they had this is how they had to do it. I just felt that you're just wasting some time focusing on promo work with Monet when her bread and butter is absolutely in ring. But I think the match will be a great match, and I'm sure Monet will win. Roderick Strong defeated Kyle O'Reilly to retain the international title. Another prediction I was correct in. We did not fare well towards the end of the show, though. But Roderick Strong does not have an easy match at Double or Nothing, because now he will be challenged by the one, the only, Will Ospreay. That's going to be a tough one for Roddy. So without my prediction show already starting, I'm going to automatically assume that Ospreay wins that title. Chris Jericho in the upset of the century, defeating Hook, winning the FTW title. I don't know if Hook's going to WWE. I don't know if Chris Jericho has some sort of master plan to make Hook the greatest star of all time by somehow defeating him and winning back the title. Jericho's also now trademarked the Learning Tree. I don't know what the hell's going on. Chris Jericho's a great wrestler. He's a bona fide Hall of Famer. He's a legend in this business. But absence makes the heart grow fonder. And when Jericho's on TV every week, and he can help put over a lot of younger talent, of course, by being in the ring with them, but does that happen when you're defeating Hook on pay-per-view? I don't think so. So, I don't know. It's just confusing. I'm just overseeing Chris Jericho actively be involved every single week, to that extent where he's defeating Hook on pay-per-view, and that's all they can. What's next? Again, I will let things play out. I'm going to discuss that in the next segment when I discuss Dynamite. But what could possibly be next? I have no idea. Timeless Tony Storm defeats Thunder Rosa by pinfall. Solid match. Tony Storm retains her title. And not sure what is next for her. Again, it's kind of tough when you have Monet really on board with the TBS title of it all. Unfortunately, it's tough, that there's only so many segments and so much time on an episode of AEW TV that, you can only give so much to each talent, but I don't know. And we'll talk about it with Swerve winning the world title at the pay-per-view and yet being like the opening segment of the next episode of Dynamite in a match when he easily could have defended or had the Eliminator match to close out the show. I feel like that's a little bit of a waste. But, we'll get to that in a moment. So we'll see where Tony Storm goes from there. But, these next three matches, we kind of knew going in, but I don't know, man. Will Ospreay defeats Bryan Danielson. I thought going into this match that Will Ospreay had the best match of 2024 with his match against Takeshita. And Will Ospreay still has the best match of 2024, but it's with Bryan Danielson. They branded this as a dream match, and it is a dream match. And most dream matches, unfortunately, don't live up to the hype. That was not the case here. This was at times hard to watch due to the level of intensity and bumps that Danielson and Ospreay were taking, especially with Danielson's injury history, primarily with his neck and concussions. But oh my God, this is the best match of the night. This is the best match of the year so far, I think, by far. Man, just back and forth, the amount of in-ring moves that occurred that were just extraordinary. Again, some of the landings, especially on the Hurricane Rana, that kind of flipped into Ospreay landing on his feet. Just a lot of, I don't know, Will Ospreay's on another level. This seemed almost like a passing of the torch of great matches from a guy to the next guy. And Will Ospreay, his song is over. Bruv is over. He's great each and every week. He's getting better with promo work. His in-ring work is, dare I say, the best in the world right now. And man, I'm just happy that back when this initially started coming through, like, we're going to get, Kenny Omega back on TV or on TV in a capacity week to week, when you would just see him maybe in New Japan. Similar with Will Ospreay. It's a guy you've read about, but it's tough to really gauge the level of talent of a guy that's never on TV, let alone each week to week. And I was like, look, let's just see Will Ospreay week to week. Let's see what his promo skills are. Let's see him in some stories. Let's give him, just more. Give him more time for this North American audience. And he is arguably the most over guy in AEW right now. His promo work is incredible. He's got so much damn charisma. His in-ring body of work is really unmatched by anybody. And even in a storyless match like him and Danielson, it told one hell of a story. And I am thrilled that I got to see that match. And now, like I said, Will Ospreay gets the match against Roderick Strong at Double or Nothing. And I'm sure that the crowd will be going berserk for Will Ospreay there. But go out of your way to watch this match. Definitely the Takeshita Ospreay match was insane, but this match is next level for sure. So absolutely check that out. As prophesized, somehow, some way, the scapegoat, Jack Perry, interferes, and the Young Bucks win the AEW World Tag Titles, the first 3-time winner of the AEW Tag Titles. And I'm going to hold off getting to what I was going to get to, but Jack Perry comes through the crowd with a mask on, and as that happens, everybody's like, oh, who is this? That's a fan. Get him out of the ring. Commentary sold it very well. And then it revealed to be Jack Perry, and that damn smirk on his face seemed to really pop the crowd. The crowd really enjoyed it. So that is a good start, and we will continue here in a moment at the end when we get to Dynamite. But Swerve Strickland does finally win the AEW World Title. Historic moment for the company. Historic moment for Swerve. He's the 8th AEW champion in its almost now 5-year history. Which it shows you a couple things. It shows you that this title is not the WWF title in 1999 where it changes hands numerous times. It is a respected title. If you are the champion, you are given respect. You are keeping the respect. You are the guy. They have all the faith in the world with you. And I don't know. It's a nice recognition of such. So, I mean, as of this moment, we've got Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega, Hangman Adam Page, CM Punk, MJF, Samoa Joe, and now Swerve Strickland. So pretty cool that these are the only title reigns that we have here, but it absolutely is a relished title, and only 8 men have been champion in the entire history of the company. One reign lasted 277 days, one lasted 346, and of course MJF held it for 406. So outside of that, it's tough to hold it a long time. Jericho and Hangman held it for a good while, but ultimately it was it. So we'll see where Swerve goes from here. I think that Double or Nothing will be interesting. I'm not sure who he'll go against. I would like to see Hangman. I really would. And I just don't know if that happens with Swerve retain or what have you. But I do ultimately believe that regardless, Will Ospreay might be in line to win the AEW title if he gets an opportunity when we get to All In Wembley, which, I mean, that it's set up for that. If Will Ospreay is mega over here, imagine him potentially winning the world title in Wembley. I mean, that is a moment if I've ever thought about one. But very happy for Swerve, man. I think I tweeted it out back at Full Gear that Swerve is going to be a world champion in 2024, and it absolutely happened. And I couldn't be happier for the guy. He's really improved since coming to AEW. I feel like he was absolutely the standout of Hit Row. And, hey, some of those other guys just couldn't cut the mustard. Swerve is the real deal. And he is now your AEW World Champion. So I'm looking forward to this title reign as long as it lasts. So we'll see who he actually gets to defend it next. I'm hopeful that Double or Nothing is a really strong one-on-one match. We'll see who against, though. But, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Let's talk about, of course, the big end to Dynamite. This was something. I mean, by we, I mean pretty much everybody in the pro wrestling content creation space. We're kind of back and forth on the, Jack Perry scapegoat, CM Punk, Wembley footage, Tony Khan. The entire situation has really divided fans, almost more so than the general tribalism between AEW and WWE, to a level that I never thought we'd get to. But my issue with the entire story and the inclusion of the footage, which I was surprised that they unveiled and showed, was just that, you show this footage, but who does it really help? And even on what I'm about to discuss here, Daly's Place, Dynamite, this is their hometown, big show. You had the new world champion in the first match. You closed the show with a huge angle, but it had nothing to do with the world champion. I just think sometimes their decision making is a little confusing, but I will let it play out. So they do the footage, they show the footage. Scapegoat Jack Perry, of course, has been doing work with New Japan. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think Jack Perry, I like his in-ring work. I thought he was incredibly over as Jungle Boy. But of course, he had to elevate from that. He could not be Jungle Boy forever. It's just the Jack Perry character had little to no charisma, in my opinion. And I felt that he had the charisma of a quarter or a thumbtack. I made plenty of different jokes in regards to him. Nothing personal. I just feel like they saddled him with this position. He has this falling out with Punk and the whole thing. And now it's like, okay, well, let's just cash in on that. But ideally, you would have had CM Punk versus Jack Perry. Like how it all played out was not how I feel they could have wanted it. Like it could have been a lot better. But this is not how it works, and this is what they have. So they have to lean into Jack Perry. So more power to them and him. So they, have the ladder match. And, of course, Jack Perry interferes. Seems like he's a part of the elite. And the pop from the crowd would prove that. And I was like, all right, I'll let it play out. This is a good start. I got to be honest. And then Dynamite. We have Jack Perry out there, and he's talking to Tony Khan, and he's like, hey, I appreciate all this, and, thank you for, welcoming me back in. All these really nice words to say to Tony Khan. They even hug. But then you see the smirk. You see the wheels turning. And lo and behold, a punch to the gut to Tony Khan. And we are absolutely on another level here. Jack Perry attacking Tony Khan on TV at Daly's Place. The Elite come out. They hit him with the TK driver. Not the Meltzer driver, but the TK driver. Lay out Tony Khan in the center of the ring. A bunch of wrestlers come out to assist him. Tony Khan's father comes out. A pretty big angle. And I will also give AEW credit here. They showed the draft room for the Jacksonville Jaguars tonight as I'm recording this. And Tony Khan was, in fact, in a neck brace. So I was really thrilled to see that they kept that going. And that's all I want. If you are going to go all in, pun intended, on an angle like this, and you're going to involve Tony Khan, and this is the first time you're really doing this, you have to go all the way. It happened in the building adjacent to the Jaguar Stadium. Tony Khan, of course, and their family owns the Jaguars. Like, this is a huge thing. And for the NFL draft to be happening, you needed to have, Tony Khan in the continuity of a neck brace or selling the injury in some way. Hell, he could have just not shown up and that would have been something. But to do all of that, I felt that you needed to lean in. You have to go all the way. You can't flip-flop. This is not the ranking system. And look, I will sit here and I will absolutely admit on this show that if Jack Perry and this elite angle with Okada and the Bucks and Jack Perry and the Tony Khan of it all. If the payoff is worth it, and this thing turns into one of the hottest AEW angles that they've had, I will have no issue eating my words about Jack Perry, his charisma, what have you. Any of the decision making that's been happening, I will be all on board if this pans out how I feel like it could. I will let it play out. I just feel, this is a huge idea. I saw a lot of fans maybe critical of it, saying, oh, we've done this before. The NWO beat up Bischoff. Vince got beat up by Austin. Dixie Carter got put through a table. It's been done. We've seen it. Nothing in the entertainment realm is original, or very few things can be original as time continues to progress. So as time continues to progress, even if you can't be 1,000% original, you should at least take an idea that someone else did and try to put your own spin on it to create your own success. And all the things I mentioned earlier with Dixie and Bischoff and Vince were all successful. So why not put your own spin on it? This is what they wanted to do, and have Tony Khan have a spot here, and give it to Jack Perry and the Young Bucks and the Elite, Okada, what have you. Sometimes you can be the alternative, yet do what the other companies are doing. You have to own it your own way. You have to put your own spin on it. You can be the alternative, be competition, yet do similar things. There's no rule against that. And I think that's something that AEW should look at and continue to focus on, is just because we're quote-unquote competing with WWE, or we're trying to be the alternative to what WWE presents, that does not restrict you from trying angles that have worked before, but putting the AEW spin on it. And I think that's exactly what they've done with last Wednesday's ending of Dynamite. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they pull off in the future, what it leads to for Double or Nothing. Will we see a blood and guts match involving these talents and a Tony Khan-led team? I don't know what the goal is, but if they play their cards right, if they do it the right way, I think it can be successful. And like I said, I will have no issue praising Jack Perry, Tony Khan, the Elite, whoever, if that is the case. I am a fan of professional wrestling first and foremost. I like AEW. I like WWE. I like it all. There's some stuff on shows that suck, and I will tell you that it sucks. But if it gets better, I have no problem in saying that it got better. There's no sense in sticking to some opinion that could never be changed or amended at some point. Like, people don't think or live the same way forever. Companies don't make the same decisions and never change forever. You have to progress, you have to change, you have to adapt, or else you'll perish and you'll never be the same, and you'll be stuck in the mud, stuck in a rut. You'll have to figure something else out. Otherwise, you're just going to be stagnant, you're going to be in traffic, and you're going to become insane. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again without expecting something to just drastically change when that's just not realistic. And I'm hopeful. I'm going to let it play out with AEW and see what happens. I'm looking forward to what they've got going on. Everything has been clicking. Swerve being world champion. Will Ospreay's rise now as one of the bigger stars. This Elite angle, of course. There's a lot to like about AEW, and I just want it to succeed. If AEW is better, WWE has to be better, and vice versa. So there's no sense in me just picking sides, and I can never like the other. What does that benefit me? It doesn't. So, spiel over, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed this edition of the Juice Box this week. A lot of Dynasty, draft stuff, the Elite, Tony Khan, me finally being a part of some other podcasts instead of hosting them all the time, at least a part of this show. SmackDown in Pittsburgh, a lot of different topics we went over today, but as always, I enjoyed just discussing the pro wrestling week with all of you. So before we head out, as always, at Juicy Steen on Twitter, at Juicy Wrestling Closet on Instagram, juicysteen.podbean.com, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. You can listen to the Juice Box, as well as Amazon Music. So that is a new avenue to listen to the Juice Box. And as I stated, I'm very happy to announce that the YouTube, at Juicy Steen on YouTube, you can find the Juice Box podcast. Every single episode, the newest episodes will always be uploaded to YouTube as well in their entirety if you listen to podcasts that way. And if and when any video content becomes available, I'm still kind of considering ideas and throwing things around. Once those ideas come to fruition, potentially any sort of video content will be posted to the Juicy Steen YouTube page. So always keep an eye out for that. I do believe I have the link tree to all of those links in my descriptions on all my social media. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this episode of the Juice Box. I do believe next week we will be doing a Backlash prediction show, so be on the lookout for that. And like I said, follow along my social medias to check out my appearances on some other pods, the Around the Mat show, and of course the Apron Bump. Or is it just Apron Bump? I'm not really sure if there's a "the" in there, but great shows nevertheless. I really enjoyed being a part of that, and I hope you guys enjoyed being a part of the Juice Box this week. So that all being said, Backlash predictions, if not a little bit more, maybe next week. I'm Juice Springsteen. Hope you guys enjoyed this week, and I'll catch you guys next week with another episode of the Juice Box. That was the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to the Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.